from Franciscan. I am at this stage of the game an admissions scholarship and financial aid expert. I'm a certified college planning specialist, and I've been doing this work since 2004, which is getting to be about when a lot of these kids who are graduating were born. The biggest thing that I would say that I am is a student advocate. I'm also an author, and we'll talk more a little bit later about at least one of the books, the one that's come out the most recently for you. So without any further ado, let's get right into our topic of today of what admissions is looking for, because I'm going to help you to not be stuck anymore on the outside looking in. This sculpture's at one of the UC schools, and it just epitomizes where a lot of parents feel like they are, and a lot of kids right now, because so much has changed. It was hard enough before, but now with all of the changes and chaos and confusion and the hearsay, it's more confusing than ever. So no more being stuck on the outside looking in. Let's go take a look at what they're saying. This is admissions goal. This picture I chose because you'll see that none of them are the same. There's some similarities among some of these gems, but they're all different, but they all have some similarities and they all fit together. This is what admissions is looking for in each group of applicants. They want to come out with a well-rounded class of academically qualified students that are going to pay enough money to meet the needs, the financial needs and goals of the university, and bring many unique skills and abilities and perspectives to the class so that those dynamic conversations can happen. So there used to be said that colleges were looking for well-rounded students. I'm hoping that you are all aware that that's really not what their focus has been for some time now. They're really looking for a well-rounded class. And so that means that we want to help our kiddos shine and really be who they are. So there are three basic hurdles that we're looking at getting through to get admitted: the academic hurdle, the financial hurdle, and then the personal fit hurdle. So we'll look into each of these in more depth as we move through this presentation. But I wanted to share with you before we got into all of that detail, the number one thing that colleges want, and they've been saying this before the pandemic, continuously through the pandemic, and now as things are starting to open up, they're continuing to say it. The number one things that they are looking for is authenticity. They know when a parent or someone else has written an essay. That happens. It's not supposed to happen, but it happens. Or when there's been a huge amount of adult editing. They recognize that that voice is not the student's. They recognize it when a student all of a sudden the summer before senior year starts throwing out a bunch of activities and things to beef up their resume. That's not very authentic. Now, sometimes our kiddos, that's their authentic development, but they can see that progression as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about how they see that. But this is the resounding theme from admissions professionals, from the super selectives all the way down to we accept everybody's schools. They want to see authenticity, and they want to see it universally across the application from their students. They want them to be themselves and be who they are and be okay with who they are. With COVID and the pandemic and all of the shifts, they've also started to talk about a second thing that they are looking for. And yes, across the spectrum, the admissions officers are talking about this. And that's, they're talking about wanting to see a level of maturity, I would call it, but they really wanted to see evidence of self-care, whether that is going for walks, whether that is sidewalk chalk art to amuse the neighbor kids and blow off some of their own steam, taking a bubble bath, taking some time in prayer and meditation, whatever that looks like. They really want to see that these kids have figured out how to take care of themselves in a stressful situation. And they certainly have had plenty of opportunities in this last year and a half to demonstrate that. The colleges have seen a rising, I won't call it an epidemic, but it's certainly a significant increase in the amount of mental health issues our kiddos are facing. And a lot of kids are going to college and that fall freshman year semester not making it through. And they really don't want to see that. So as much as possible, they really like to see self-care happening and that stability starting to be formed in the students while they're in high school so that they have more confidence that they will be successful. Their goal is to bring students onto their campuses who will be successful on their campus. That is their ultimate goal. Okay. Sorry, let's break into this a little bit further. As I mentioned, the first hurdle, and I hope you would think this is natural and the most important thing, because this is an educational process after all, is the academics. So let's break that down. The fundamental question that they are asking is, can you cut it here? Do you have what it takes to be successful academically on our campus? So they're going to look at the academic rigor of the courses your child has taken during high school, the type of courses, and their grades. That's going to tell them a lot about your student. They're also going to be questioning whether your student is a go-getter, a high achiever. You know, those kiddos who choose to stay in their comfort zone and stay in the honors classes or the regular classes and not try the higher level classes because they're real comfortable getting A's and being the smartest kid in that class. A lot of our schools, that's not a good thing. And they really see that that student is being mediocre. They're not challenging themselves. They want to see that you've challenged yourself, and they recognize you have strengths and weaknesses, and you may have thought you could do well and you couldn't, and all of that. They want to see that you've really tried and that you are not settling for mediocre, that you are really challenging yourself to grow academically. Again, the question, are they likely to be successful on that campus? As you know, we have a spectrum of academic levels on our campuses. So that appropriate academic fit is something we'll talk about in a little bit, but that's certainly a piece, and admissions is looking for that too. And then what are your grade trends? This is something that I don't think parents are aware of, but the colleges see the transcript and they look at the grade trends. So some of them, most of them actually will recalculate the GPA. They'll chop out things like PE, you know, a lot of A's that are not academic A's. And they may cut out other classes as well. Some of them won't look at the freshman year courses, others will. Some are going to calculate multiple GPAs depending on what your major is. They might want to see a math science GPA because you're going into the sciences or engineering. And then they also are going to pay attention to your trends. It may be that it took time, and then finally the math started clicking and they got better and better and better, as stronger as they went forward. Or there was a wobble, there was something that happened in a certain term and you've talked about it, you know, they had a car accident or somebody died or they moved or something else happened that really took a lot of time and attention or ability away from being able to apply themselves academically, and the grades wobbled a semester. And they see that correlation with that experience, and that things went back up. So they'll notice that as well. They'll notice the shifts. Our kiddos that are really strong in math and science or in English and the humanities and just not good across the board, they'll see those trends. They see the kids coming into their own in their writing. A lot of times the freshman courses in high school are just like the freshman courses in college, where everything's up leveled. They're expected to perform at a higher level, and it takes a while to adjust. So the colleges are looking for those trends. And the other thing that I wanted to make sure that you are aware of is that in addition to the transcript, the colleges are also getting from your high school counselor, and if you're homeschooled, you need to be creating this yourself, a school report. And that lets them know the income level of the people that go to that school, the demographics as far as the ethnic groups and things like that that are there, the education levels of the people who are going to that school and live in that area. So they know that about the student body. They also are going to know that during the time that your student was in school at that school, what was available. So at our school, we're a new school, new program, we are rolling in AP classes. And so in this 4-year period that, you know, Susie was a student, we only offered 3. Or we're a well-established high-flying school with a lot of kids who do really, really well, we offer 20. So the student who took 2 AP classes in a school that only offered 3 looks very different than one who took 2 AP classes in a school that offers 20. And they don't expect that all the students are going to take all the AP classes. It's in some of the schools, they offer so many, that's not even possible. But again, that authenticity, that trend, I want to go into environmental engineering or environmental science, or I want to go into history. Am I taking the advanced courses in the areas related to what I want to study? or am I not? Is that interest showing as well as the academic capability showing? So they're looking at all of these things. A lot of times we just see a list of courses and grades and don't realize the analysis that's going on behind the scenes for admissions. Excuse me again, I'm sorry, I do have a cold. Again, in the academic area, they want to see that the students' interests are aligned with what they have to offer on their campus. The colleges are very different one from another, and even in department to department on the larger schools and college to college and the big universities, they have different offerings. And so they really want to see that the students aligned with the programs that they're going for and what they have to offer in terms of the learning style, the teaching style. We have everything from super hands-on to really small Socratic discussion, intensely conversation-based courses, to huge, like UC Santa Barbara has these 1,100 person intro courses where you have to really be a self-starter if you're going to get through them, period. And then attention to get to advanced courses. You're certainly not going to get to know your professor when you have 1,100 students in the course. Can you, are you going to be successful in those environments that those schools are offering? And then your major field of study, as I mentioned, are you taking the kinds of classes? Are you doing the extracurriculars and the summer programs and things that would line up towards identifying that, yes, this is your field of study in an area that you really are demonstrating interest in. Your special interests, as I just mentioned, your extracurricular activities and programs and online classes and things that you've taken all indicate what you're interested in. And it may be that you have an applied interest. Like I have had students in the past who were tremendous athletes in one area, but they really had interest in another area. For example, I'm thinking of one young lady, excuse me, she was a ballerina and very skilled at that. And she was a pre-med student. And so she wasn't planning to continue with dance, but she pulled from her essays all of the discipline and the time management skills and the attention to detail that she learned through her study of ballet over the years into her math and science and her approach to how she wanted to handle medicine and her academics. You could really see it all fitting together. She obviously spent a lot of time on it. So even though ballet was not directly related to her major or her interest in going to medical school, it all fit together. So those sorts of things, they're going to look for that. And then lastly, your academic and professional goals. For example, I work with a fair number of kiddos who are pre-med or pre-law. Okay. Do they offer support for that on that campus? Some of our schools have fantastic offices and a lot of support for our pre-professional students. Some of our campuses really, really don't. So, excuse me, that whole area is another area that admissions is going to be considering and wanting to make sure that you're going to be able to thrive on their campus. Okay, and then another area in the whole academics area is, are you awesome? Didn't know what other word to use, but are you a leader, a collaborator? Are you diligent? Are you creative? In what way do you shine? If you remember my circle of gems at the beginning, are you a blue stone or a yellow stone or an orange stone or a white stone? How are you splendid? How are you gifted? How are you going? What are you bringing to the campus? Are you going to be somebody who is an instigator and really stirs the pot and gets that discussion really going? Are you somebody who's going to sit quietly, but when you speak, everyone stops and listens because what you have to say is well considered and well formulated and really contributes significantly to the conversation? Are you somebody that's going to be in front of the parade leading and let's go do this thing? We need to, we have a need in the community. Let's go take care of it. Are you somebody that's really good at the group work? What is it you're bringing? So these are other attributes of the learning environment that they are fostering by selecting the students they're bringing onto their campuses. And if they have, 4,000 leaders and no followers, no collaborators, that's not going to work, right? So they are looking to have a bunch of different gems, and they want to know what you're going to contribute to their community of scholars as scholars. So there's a lot of things that they are considering, probably far beyond anything that you thought when you're looking at the transcript list of courses and grades. There's a lot more that they're pulling out of it. Okay, let's move on to our second hurdle. Excuse me. All right, financials. not something our students can do much about, but let me explain some of the terms and what's going on and how this plays into admissions. Fundamentally, one of the things that we tend to forget as we approach this as parents is that colleges are businesses. And I think there's a greater awareness of that in some of the news that's been happening since the pandemic. We've had some colleges close, we've had some merge with other schools, we've had more conversation out there, still not a lot of it, but more of it about the financial strength of some of our colleges and universities. They are fundamentally businesses, and at the end of the day, they need to balance their books. So that's something that comes into the admissions office as well as the development office and a lot of the other offices, but it absolutely comes in and impacts what's happening in admissions. So let me explain some of the terms. The first one I want to talk about is need-blind admissions. This only applies to very few of our schools, and they tend to advertise who they are. It'll be right on their financial aid page on their website that they are need blind. They may even say it on their admissions page. And what this means is technically true, but a little disingenuous. So technically it means that they are not going to look at your financial picture at all when you're in admissions. At the same time, we all know, if we think about it, that our affluent students have been able to go to summer camps and programs that our lower income students, middle class students can't really afford to go do. Some of them have done fantastic programs abroad or research things or other things that are thousands of dollars to do for 2 or 3 weeks. And some of our families can't afford it. So admissions is going to see, even without looking at our numbers, they're going to see evidence of our financial strength. So they're technically need blind, but it's only technically. So just so you're aware, but that's what that means. Now, most of our schools are need aware, and this is kind of how we feel like, oh my gosh, they're looking at everything. And they are. And you'll even have some that say right on the application for admissions, what's your income for the year? What did mom and dad make last year? What was the adjusted gross income? And usually the student's like, I don't know, had to go to a parent and ask for a number. And it's kind of funny because even with the number, a lot of kids are like, I don't really know if that means we make a lot of money or not much money. And as we all know, with cost of living differences across the country, there's a lot of sway in, how much, if you make a $500,000 where I'm living right now in the Midwest, it's going to go a lot further than when I lived in San Diego. But need aware. So that means that in admissions, they are not only evaluating the academics and the personal traits of the student, they're also bringing to bear what the amount of money is that student is likely to bring with them. Because you're going to have students that are full pay. And so whatever that sticker price is for that school, that's what they're going to get as far as admissions revenue. And then there'll be other students that are full need. And so they're going to get, the Pell Grant and whatever state grants and that's going to be about it. And maybe some merit scholarships. And that's the revenue number for that student. And so all of that needs to come in, and they need to balance it so that they get a class of students that bring in enough revenue to keep the university running. Some may say that's not fair. At the same time, I think we all recognize that the university needs to keep running and they need to pay their teachers and all that stuff. So that is what it is. Not a lot you can do about it, but just so you are aware, that's what's going on in the vast majority of our campuses. And then I also wanted to talk about something that does hit the news is institutional goals. So, the ABC College wants to bring on more Pell recipients, or they want to bring in more first generation students, or they want to bring more students to boost their diversity, whatever they mean by diversity. And they'll have different goals for that. It might be women on an engineering college, or it might be men in the arts, or it might be of different racial and ethnic backgrounds, et cetera. And by and large, those are headline grabbers, to be honest. We know from the statistics of what's actually happened that, especially at those colleges which have a lot of wiggle, their percentage, the numbers of Pell recipients in their classes has not increased. They may get some nice headlines from it, but it isn't happening. There are a few schools where it's happening more. It's, again, the balance to balance the books. And it's a lot of the things that come out are marketing, to be honest, which is really hard when we want our kids to do well and want our kids to have opportunities, but just trying to let you know what's actually going on. And then first generation is defined as students who either, it depends on the school actually how the definition goes, but either your parents didn't attend college at all or they didn't graduate. Sometimes we have kids whose parents went to college for a while and then didn't finish for whatever reason, or they have an associate's and but not a bachelor's. So sometimes those are counted as first generation. Or they went to school in another country. Sometimes those are considered first generation because they don't know the American system. While these goals can be very good, and some schools have done very well at boosting their numbers, not all the schools have done very well. And I've been hearing talk, and they're definitely trying to bolster and strengthen their programs, but they have to do a lot of support. You know, my children's father and I both went to college. I have a master's degree, going for a doctorate. There's an awful lot of the atmosphere at our house that they grew up in without anybody's intention that made them college ready and aware. They were aware of the tests. They all like to read. They all, get scrutiny on their English assignments, and, grades are checked. And there's just a whole lot of environmental factors that are present in a family where the parents have gone to college that simply are not present when the parents have not, and they have been doing other kinds of work for their professions. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Those students have a whole other set of skills that they bring in, but they need some support to tackle some of the situations that they face on campus that they've not faced before, and they can't call mom and dad and ask. And sometimes mom and dad don't speak English. There's just a myriad issues. So if you are a first generation student, when you are doing your campus visits, you absolutely want to be asking questions on the campuses you're considering about the support that they are offering for first generation students, because you will find some of them is excellent and some of it is not. And some of it is excellent in the areas you need it to be in, and maybe weak in areas that you don't need help in those areas. So you need to really get the detailed information so you can evaluate for you, are your needs going to be met? And ask questions, because a lot of times, kind of the whole point, you don't know the questions you need to ask. So how are they going to lead you through that and help you figure those situations that you're going to face? Okay. The third hurdle, personal fit. This is an area that fits into admissions because they want everyone there to thrive. And so they're looking at questions like, what will your presence bring to campus? That's why I like this picture, because you have this vibe going on of, we are having a good time, we're at the beach, we are a little bit more casual, just, got a certain vibe about this whole person that's not even in this picture. And we don't want a campus full of these people, because we do need people that are going to study. And we need a balance in this person as well, that they're going to be able to get the academics done. But they want to see what your presence brings to campus. As I mentioned, some of those examples earlier of the really strong leader, the dynamic conversationalist, the catalyst for getting social change, et cetera. So what are you bringing to campus? And what are your hopes and dreams? If all I want to do is just kind of get out of the house and go to school, that's not really adding to that conversation and that drive on campus to go off and make the world a better place, or to be great business owners, or whatever the campus is fostering among their students. Excuse me. Are you a leader? Now, remember that leadership is demonstrated in a number of different ways. So it's not just standing in front of a bunch of people and speaking and organizing a big group or a big event. There are a lot of ways to be leaders. A lot of our mentors are quiet leaders, they're introverts, and we need them just as well. But part of why they're looking for that is, we know, as I mentioned earlier, that a lot of our students are going off to university and they are not being successful, and they're having a lot of issues. And if you're a leader of others, you are also a leader of yourself, and you can self-advocate and get the help that you need, identify the problems that you're having, and be persistent of asking at this office, oh, you don't have the answers I need to go to this office and that office and go wherever and look on these websites and find what it is I need to get the situation I'm in taken care of and improved. So that's what they're looking for. And then the contribution to academic excellence, I really should have reworded it, but your contribution to the campus community. How are you going to fit in your dorm and fit in your college, on our university campus? Are you going to be a dynamic player and really bring people together, et cetera? So they're looking for the right kind of student for their campus. As you go visit campuses, you'll notice that they feel different. It's like visiting friends. You go to your friend's house and you guys get along well, and you meet in lots of places, and you go to their house and they run things differently at their house, and they arrange their kitchen differently. And there's a different disciplinary vibe and just different comfort, and things are done differently at their house. Not to say that it's better or worse than your house, it's just different. And so certain people are going to fit in better on these campuses than others. So that's a piece of it as well. Because remember, their bottom line is to get a good, strong class that's going to thrive on campus academically and socially and maturity and spiritually and all of it. Okay. Are you promising is another consideration. Are you an athlete who's going to be recruited, who's doing the Olympics, who's contributing in significant ways in your sport? Are you a performer of some kind? Are you a future graduate student? Maybe you're going to get a Fulbright scholarship or something like that in all these different areas. And why do they want that? Why is that helpful? Well, because they want the bragging rights. We have, 14 Fulbright scholars, all those things that they brag about on their admissions page of, so many kids are going to grad school, or they're employed, or they're off doing these great things, or they study abroad and do that. They're looking for students who are going to continue to contribute to that reputation of the school. They get the bragging rights for our kiddos. So that's a big piece of it. Okay. And they also want to be realistic, because if you are a phenomenal, say, Olympic gymnast, and they don't have a gymnastics program, and there's not a great gym around, they know that you're not a serious applicant to their school. They're probably scratching their head as to why you applied, unless it's clear from your essays, because they don't have what you need to continue to thrive in an area that's clearly a strength and very important to you. So putting it all together, again, making sure that there's appropriate fit. And then what makes you tick? What's your vibe? I've worked with students who are on their second and third businesses in high school, and that whole dynamic is something that's really important to them. There are some campuses they will be miserable on because they just don't have that pivotability, that flexibility for all the innovation. And a lot of those kids, frankly, are ADD, and they have learned to channel that shifting and focus into businesses, so they can sustain a focus long enough to launch something and get things moving. And then they're ready for the next thing. And I have met adults that are, serial entrepreneurs, and they can be very successful people, or they can be kind of flakes because they just don't stick with things long enough. So there's a whole vibe there that if your campus doesn't have that, that's not going to work for you. Or maybe you're really, really curious and you're pushing the edge on everything, and you're going to end up creating somebody who creates your own major, or you're cross-disciplinary or interdisciplinary in your studies. Some of our campuses are really good at fostering that. Others are, here's the line for this major, and here's the lines for that major, and here's the progression for that major. And they really don't have that interplay. So you might be a perfectly wonderful student and just not fit in at that school. And then your vibe, generally, do you fit in with our kiddos? As I said, there's a personality on the campus. And admissions is doing more of this work than usual, because with the last year and a half of pandemic adjustments, people haven't been able to make campus visits. And so all of those nonverbal cues that you pick up when you're on a campus and getting the vibe of what's happening and do you fit in there, the students haven't been able to have those experiences, and therefore eliminate schools that are not appropriate for them and identify the ones that really are. So some of the applications have gone up, and we know that the number of applications per student has gone up. And the lack of campus visits is a big part of it, because they really don't know. And then they were hoping they would get to visit in the spring, this last class, but that really didn't happen either. So we're still not sure what's going to happen with this class of 22. So this is a place that admissions may say no to a very well qualified student otherwise, because they're just not, the vibes just isn't right. Okay. So how do students showcase themselves? So through their applications, they're going to be able to share their grades, their transcripts, their school report, as I mentioned earlier, their test scores in some cases. Now, SAT and ACT scores at some schools are optional. So before you even ask the question of if we have scores, should we submit them? My short answer is yes. And let me explain why. One of the things that you always want to avoid with admissions is any question marks. So if they know that you are in California and everything has been canceled forever, you should have a note that you put into the COVID section on your application saying, yeah, there've been no tests opportunities. It's been insane. But if you're somewhere else where they've had testing going on, they know that. Okay. And then you don't offer a test score because maybe you took it and you just didn't do as well as you would have liked, or you could do because you were sick that day or whatever happened. I would advocate that you still send the score and you explain the score. I had the flu that day. My flight was late. I just had an off day, but as you'll see, and then spin it. As you'll see from my grades, my consistent day-to-day performance is a better indication of my academic capabilities than that one day when I was not well or got stuck outside in a snowstorm for 2 hours, whatever the thing was. Okay. And then remember that the test optional typically is returned the SAT and ACT scores. As you know, the SAT subject scores, there are no more tests. So if you have them from the past, you have them from the past. But colleges are still looking for AP scores, IB scores. They'll accept CLEP exams by and large. And then the classic learning test, which there's more than 100 colleges will take that instead of the SAT and ACT. And some of our higher skilled kiddos, especially in math, since their score can be higher on the CLT than the SAT or ACT, they're taking that test and submitting it to document their prowess in those fields. So even at test optional schools, if you opt out, they still may have some scores, or test blind, they still may end up with some scores. And then of course, some they're going to consider the scores. So all those pieces come in as they come in. CLEP, in case you're not familiar with it, is also offered by the College Board, and these are college equivalency tests. There are ways to prep for those. And unlike AP, that's always offered in May, or this year, there's a little bit more scatter because of COVID. The CLEP exams are available year round. So it's a whole alternative way to document your academic prowess. Your essays and short answer questions, obviously, they're going to see both your academics in terms of how you write, your sentence structure, your paragraph structure, your transitions, the vocabulary you choose, the complexity of your thoughts. They're going to see that. What are you interested in your short answer questions? What do you do in your free time? Watching YouTube videos and spacing out, or playing tons of video games, not the greatest answers in the world. But they'll see a lot about you from that. In addition to your personality, they're going to see your academics. Then your extracurricular activities. As you know, there's an activities section in all the applications. They vary in length from 4 activities to 10, and how much space they each give you to describe what it is that you've done there. What you've done and how you describe it shows a significant amount, and you get to showcase yourself there. Recommendations are tricky. With a lot of our kids not being on campus at all this year, they didn't get to meet their junior year teachers. That makes it a little much more interesting for getting recommendations, but that's still another piece and another voice. And some of our kiddos have been able to advocate and build relationships. Even so, under these circumstances of hybrid or online learning, they've still been able to reach out and connect with their teachers. A lot of us have not. So working with this whole piece, but it's something else to bring light to admissions, to show another part of who you are. Some of our colleges still invite or require interviews. I will tell you that alumni interviews rarely will make or break an admissions decision. It's just one more piece that supports it, and it shows demonstrated interest. Some of our colleges, excuse me, are very, they take into account whether your legacy, whether your parents went there. Like my kids are a legacy for Northwestern. Northwestern would consider that. It's a minor thing, but they would consider it. And then your demonstrated interest. So if you had the opportunity to do an interview and you didn't bother, especially if it's a Skype or Zoom interview, you don't even have to go anywhere. That says something about your interest in the school. It also says something about you. And it may be that you put a note in, I couldn't do an interview because I was, competing in this or sick or whatever the circumstance was. But in general, it's a good idea to do that. And it gives you an opportunity to get to know the college a little bit better. And then some of our applicants are also going to be able to link to a ZME or a website or include a video in their application. A lot of our art students are also going to have a portfolio or an audition, all as part of their application. So those are obviously additional ways to showcase yourself, and what you present and how you're presented are both the two huge factors in all of that. And then Admissions was very open, and many of them were speaking about this last year, especially they were not having those hallway conversations in the time with their peers in the admissions office. And so they would have students that they weren't sure about or they got curious about, they would check the student's social media. And that sometimes would break the application because they were finding things on the social media that they didn't want associated with their college. So you do need to have your student check their social media profiles and make sure that they are showing up online in a way that is commensurate with a solid college student who's applying. And just, they want to be upright people doing appropriate things. And that can be an area where your area of interest, it really shows up, because maybe you've got a blog or a vlog that you've been posting a lot of material on your area of interest because you're into paleontology or something that's not offered in the high school. But as you learn more, you're able to put it there. That kind of thing is another thing. And you can even let admission know, hey, go look at this, because it's augments and demonstrates this interest that I have and augments my application. And then of course your financial aid come from the FAFSA, which is the federal application for financial aid. Excuse me. Okay, so what your applications need to look like when you go underneath, you want to see some goals coming from the student, their academic goals, their personal goals, their life goals. And they come together into a vision. Okay, that is conveyed through that application. That's what they need to put together. And this is what it needs to look like. Absolutely let it shine. Whoever they are, whatever their gifts and talents and abilities are, vibrantly, brilliantly, forcefully expressed through the application, whoever they are. So since 2004, I've been putting together the College Success Program. I work with 8th to 12th grade students to put this all together. I have 3 pillars that I've put together, I've identified as being absolutely essential to this whole process. The premier student preparation, I'm hoping you can see that in order to become the kind of student, demonstrate the kind of leadership and interest and strengths that they need to on the application, that takes time to prepare and develop in the student and identify what directions they want to go in. And then savvy college selection, so that I'm, not a person with a B+ average applying to a college with a 4% admit rate. I mean, like, why? I'm not going to get in. Just being realistic about it. Or I'm a student who's in a, aerospace or aviation or something, and they're applying to schools that are not. And there's myriad factors. I mean, those are a couple of really obvious examples, but there are a lot of different factors. And then abundant funding. So increasing need-based aid, tap-in scholarships. There's a lot of different aspects of that we get into. So in the end, my College Success Program students are well prepared, they're focused, they have goals, they are authentically themselves, and they're able to articulate it. We've broken things apart, they're able to identify their traits and their strengths, and they know who they are and where they're going. They have right fit schools on their list. They put together polished applications with my guidance. We craft, they craft essays that are very good, and I help them along that process and doing the brainstorming and the entire process of the application or essay writing. They apply ahead of deadline typically, which makes sense. If you've got a deadline and everybody's going to show up on the due date and you get things a week or two ahead, you've got time to read them. You're not flooded. And then over the past 7 graduating classes, my students have averaged about 240,000 or more in scholarship offers. The campus success skills, after they're accepted, we get into all of the life skills for living in a dorm, living on your own, dealing with money, dealing with all the obstacles you're going to have on campus, adjusting to life on campus, the way that things are run at a college versus the way they're run at a high school. And in general, our students are less stressed and the families are happier. They're getting to enjoy their Thanksgiving and their Christmas because they're not having the looming December 1st or January 1st deadline. And so everybody's yelling at everybody and snapping because, the student came and wolfed down their Thanksgiving dinner and ran back to the room because they're frantically writing essays and putting together applications that are due in a couple of days. Not a good way to put an application together, not a good way to have your family dynamic on your last Thanksgiving while the student is home. The same is true for Christmas. Excuse me, sorry, I did mention I do have a cold. My students have been accepted at colleges all over the country. This is a very small selection, but everything from Ivy League and very selective schools to strongly Catholic schools to arts schools, liberal arts schools, big public universities. There's a whole combination. I'm really student focused, not focused on what kind of schools. So my students apply to schools that are appropriate for them and they get in. I am starting, in order to help support parents as we're floundering and there's so much going on, I'm starting the Prepared Parents Monthly Group Coaching. We'll start June 14th and we'll be meeting monthly. I will give a talk on a topic and then we'll do Q&A. And you'll get to know other parents that are going through this whole college prep process, whether they are parents of 8th graders or parents of 11th graders. We'll get together and we'll talk. Excuse me. When I work with students, I start with the student, as I mentioned. I'm very student focused and they need goals. They need academic goals, college goals, career goals, life goals. They need to know who they are, what they're good at, and be okay with that, and okay with the kid who's next to them that might be really good at videography and they're not, and that one is really good at math and they're not, but I am really good at the things I'm really good at. So putting all that together, building their confidence, their self-awareness, and then helping them develop goals that are appropriate to them. And, and also looking at what God's calling them to, and all of those pieces for my kids who are Catholic and who are aware of, they're exercising their faith in their lives. And there's a whole gamut of that, everything from nothing to very engaged. So I work with them wherever they are, but they need goals. As I said, you saw that how important that is as it comes to the application process. So I help them to identify those things. I use some outside tools. I use a lot of conversation with them to get to know them, get them to think about things, and having that process of having to go explore some things and come back and be accountable and discuss it and then go through and get some feedback. That's a really good process for them. And it gives them some space to, separate from mom and dad, to explore who they are and what they think they want to do and the parts of their personality they really want to develop and strengthen, and the parts that maybe aren't so awesome they want to modify. And they've got some space to do that and permission to do that, frankly, separate from mom and dad. Because I know, for example, I'll use myself as an example. When I graduated 8th grade, I wanted to be a lawyer. I got a lot of pressure in that direction. And then I moved to wanting to be a Nobel Prize winning chemist because I, really modest goals here. And I got tons of pressure. And I ended up going to Northwestern and studying engineering because that was my mom's goal. I had expressed an interest and my mom just rammed that home. And it wasn't until my senior year Easter retreat that I realized I don't want to do this. And I finished because I was 6 weeks from graduation. I figured everybody would shoot me if I didn't, So I finished, but I stopped interviewing. I was really just done. I hated what I was studying and what I was doing and the kinds of jobs. I was sitting at these interviews going, oh, you couldn't pay me $1 million a day. I wouldn't do that. Ugh, yuck. And my parents were horrified. My mom especially just was like, Howard, that you're not working in engineering, to this, number 4 engineering school in the country at that time. And you have this degree and you're not doing it. I was still working the job that I'd been working since high school to put myself, or contribute to putting myself through school. And they were not happy. And they never went to come see me. They never came to see me when I was in graduate school, and didn't come to graduation anything because I had turned in a direction and it was much more authentic to me, but that's something they couldn't hear. Most parents aren't that extreme, but that's where my mom was. My dad went along. Dad has since, mom has died and dad is lightened up and he's now supporting what I'm doing. But that you need time to express your voice and figure that out. And if I'd had somebody to work with to help me figure out who I was as a high school person and what was really authentically me and what was being pushed on me, that would have been really helpful. And then you learn to articulate it so you can go and have that conversation with your parents and say, I really am interested in this, and this is why, and this is how it lines up. And parents, we love our kids. They listen, mostly they listen. And I just didn't have any strength to do that. So that's something, anyway, that's a lot of why I do what I do. Anyway, getting back to this. When I work with students, we consider the budget. So I want to maximize your need-based aid, wherever that comes into play. Scholarships, we have institutional scholarships and we've got private scholarships, depending on your need-based aid situation. Anybody can leverage the institutional, the private, it really depends. It does impact your need-based aid. And given that we've got schools that are 70, some pushing 80 a year, we have families that didn't used to be qualifying for need-based aid who are now. So looking at the whole piece, leveraging tuition discount programs, other things like that where we can, and then bringing funding strategies to bear, because, you know, everybody needs to use their money wisely, whether you've got a little of it or a lot of it. So that all comes together as part of the college search process, especially, but there's also some consulting that happens with the parents. And I augment the budget whenever possible, which is part of why you'll see that, you know, my students were offered a lot in scholarships, and that includes some students that were offered zero because that just didn't meet their goals and wasn't part of what they were looking for. And so we didn't look for it. So some of them were offered zero, and they're averaged in here too. Let me give you some examples in a few minutes of a few of the kids that I've worked with. So my college success program, I've got 3 different ways that I do this. So for years now, I've been doing one-on-one consulting, starting with students in 8th grade all the way up through 12th. We don't start in 12th, we start in 11th, and we meet at least once a month. And we do as many application preparation and essay coaching sessions, and we work around your schedule. So I've had students who were away for part of the summer, and we've met once a day for, you know, weeks as when they were available. And then others, we work it whatever needs to happen. Before each application is submitted, I do a holistic review. I play admissions, and I kind of, in part of my brain, I know who you are. And then I'm looking at your application and does it convey what the goals were for the application and who you are. And if it doesn't, you know, I'll kick it back, you know, so we have that process before we even hitting submit to make sure that you are really conveying through that application the wonderful things about you and your goals. You know, my one-on-one clients can email me anytime, text me for questions. It happens. I'll get conversations at school. Hey, so-and-so said this, what's going on? And, you know, be able to give that feedback. They are all about to be invited to the brand new Prepared Parent program to meet once monthly. So for their questions as well, they, you know, can meet me independently as well. And then the college application success program, group coaching sessions and lessons that I'm just about to start, be letting you all know about. They will have access to all of those resources as well. Unfortunately, my class of 2022 is closed. I still have room in my classes of 2023, 24, 25, 26 will be opening up. And that for junior, senior year is $6,500. People usually pay me on a payment plan, but we could talk about what works for you. So here's the first student I'd like to introduce you to. Andrew was a homeschooler in Michigan, lovely young man. And he was offered over $500,000 in merit scholarships, which was pretty cool. Had a long row of offers taped up to his wall, going to his room. And he's attending his top choice school, which you can see in the letter was University of Pittsburgh. He was just tickled pink. So he's doing very well. He's very happy there, even though it's been a little bit crazy with COVID, but he's doing okay. Then I want to explain a little bit more about the college application success programs that I mentioned. So this is for rising seniors. So end of 11th grade, moving into 12th grade, and it will go through the entire 12th grade year. But it's definitely starting over the summer for the group coaching program. It includes 70 recorded lessons, and we'll be dealing with topics like career exploration, as I mentioned earlier, personal goal setting. If I don't know why I want to go to college, how do I write a good application? So they need to have some time to answer those questions. And then we get into college list building. So if they've already come in with those goals, they'll validate them and they'll break things out and have more effective ways to articulate all the things they're bringing into those decisions and thoughts. Building a strong list, making sure that that is appropriate to them. We get into application strategy. That's the early action, early decision, regular decision, rolling, how all that's going to work and what makes sense for them. I guide them through figuring that out. The whole entire application process, including essay writing. Would you talk about the FAFSA profile and other financial aid forms? At the end, we get into campus success skills. So those are the main topics I cover in the 70 lessons. It's spread out across a year's worth of time. We start out weekly because there's a lot to do over the summer. And then once the applications are done, we move into monthly sessions. All the students who are in the programs are going to get a Focus to Career account to start to do some surveys and things to match what are their strengths and interests and all of those things to careers, or to say, hey, you want to do this career, here's a place to go get more information about it. And it does back into majors and college search as well. So it's a pretty helpful tool. The College Aid Pro account everyone will be getting that as well. So this is a program where you can get into pretty effective, helpful net cost evaluations, as well as there's private scholarship search through there as well. So for my families where that's the right fit, they'll be using that tool as well. And being able to look for scholarships without getting a ton of spam is very helpful. Guided Path is a program that I use for the whole application process to manage that, and students will have an account in that as well. And then there's a number of things that I've created, the personal achievements resume guide, because some of the colleges will invite them to submit a resume as well as the activities list. So we use the resume as a resource for the activities list, but then also as a standalone document, depending on what the colleges will allow them to submit. Campus visit guide, very helpful. A lot of our campuses are starting to open. What questions should you ask? Who should you talk to? What questions do you ask of each person? And a place to record that information. So that you don't confuse that really nice guy from that school with the one at that school, and the pretty girl over there with the pretty girl over there. And, you know, by the end of 2 or 3 visits, suddenly that really helpful professor is at the wrong school in your mind, because we just do that. So having a place to keep track of all of that information. And then I have a college list building template, so you're not starting from scratch. So I'll give you that template and you can get started from there. And then there's other things. There's, for example, I have an in-depth how to analyze a major or academic department handout that I make available, kind of short ebook that I make available to students as part of this process as well. And again, access is through the entirety of the senior year. So it's available also as an online course and as group coaching. So in the online course, you'll get 25 recorded group coaching sessions, as well as the 70 online lessons that walk you through, and they will be dripped out over time. And you start summer after 11th grade. You can start later if that's what needs to happen and what happens in your life, and then move through the material as quickly as you can so that you get your applications done on time. And that, again, will end in May. And it includes all of those accounts that I was just talking about, and the materials and resources, as well as the prepared parent group. And that is $1,997. There is a payment plan available for that as you consider how you want to best support your student through this whole process. And then let me introduce you to Stephen. So I met him just a few years ago. He was in the class of 2018, and he brought enough college credits with him from high school that he was able to graduate already in 2021, did very well, graduated cum laude, and he's heading to graduate school. He was offered almost $400,000 in scholarships, got accepted at all of his schools, including his Reach school. He was pretty excited about it. So there he is on his graduation day just a couple of weeks ago. Very, very happy young man. So he's one of the many students that I've had the opportunity to work with. And then let me share about the group coaching for the College Application Success Program. So it's going to start here on June 16th this year. It includes those 70 lessons, all of the accounts that I mentioned, the Focus to Career account, the College Aid Pro, Guided Path, the Prepared Parent Program, as well as all those resources, the Achievements Resume, the Campus Visit Guide, the list template for building your college list, the in-depth searching for majors and others. You know, there are dozens of these that I have prepared over the years. So those will be made available throughout the course. And then there are 25 live group coaching sessions for my group coaching group. Okay, and those will be happening weekly to start with over the summer. And as I said, once we get through application period, then that'll space out to monthly. And then additionally, these students will get 4 one-on-one consultations. I have them spread out through the program. So we will talk about those initial goals, the careers and majors and all of that. We'll talk about the college list. We'll go through the essays, and we'll do a holistic review in the end. So those are spaced out, and students can adjust them and schedule them as we go through. So they will get 4 one-hour sessions with me one-on-one through this course, in addition to the group coaching and all the lessons and the accounts and the resources as well. And for this program, it's $3,997. And again, there's a payment plan available for this as well, so that you can find a way to make that work. I'd like to introduce you to Sarah. She graduated in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. and was able to go to campus. So this is her on her move-in day at her dorm. She went to a public high school in California. She was offered just over $400,000 in scholarships. And it was tough because she got some really phenomenal scholarships and situations, but they were far from home and she couldn't visit, and made some choices that way, which limited what she could do just because of the pandemic. But she's still doing very well where she is. Happily, we had a variety of options available, and that really paid off, that pre-work that we did when the pandemic hit and everything changed in March of her senior year. I do have a couple of early registration bonuses for you. So if you sign up for the College Application Success Program, either the online course or the group coaching by midnight on June 6th, I will also send you complimentary the 15 Ways to Save 10,000 or More in College ebook that I wrote in the brand new, hot off the press. I don't even have my copy yet in print of the 2022 edition of Every Catholic's Guide to College. This guide is essential for every college-bound Catholic's college search. It includes about 300 colleges and universities across the country, as well as a list of schools around the world that teach in English that have strong Catholic communities on campus. So this includes all the Newman recommended schools, as well as all of your schools with focus missionaries, top 50 Newman centers, Catholic dormitories. There's a strong Catholic dynamic on these campuses. So the vast majority of the schools in the book are public universities. There's an index by major in the guide, so that if you're interested in electrical engineering, say, you can go to electrical engineering and see all the schools. And then there's also an index by state in the back. And on each school, there is information about the campus ministry, including the name of the priest and the campus minister with their contact information, as well as a summary of what's happening on that campus. So you can see that they have Catholic housing, or they've got a strong missionary work, or ministry to the poor, or whatever else that you would be interested in. There's Bible studies, there's small groups, there's discernment groups for vocations. There's a lot going on. And there's schools that will surprise you, like Texas A&M. If you ask the question, what's the biggest Catholic school in the country? The answer is Texas A&M. They have the most Catholic students, and they have a really vibrant Newman Center, St. Mary's, on their campus, and they've been pumping out vocations like crazy for years. University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, same thing. And they've got a Catholic dorm. I think both of them have Catholic dorms. And we've got Bowling Green State in Ohio. It's a smaller school, about 14, 15,000, hugely dynamic Newman Center, great things going on. And they participate, for example, in Christendom and so you can take Christendom college courses in philosophy and theology, transfer them into Bowling Green State for some of your gen eds. So there are a number of schools that have that program or other programs where you can take courses at these really solid Catholic schools while you're at this public university, paying the public university price, especially in state, depending on where you live, and have those opportunities and that vibrancy going on the campus. So depending on your student, your needs are going to vary, but this resource guide is phenomenal. So it's available on Amazon if you want to just go get it. The 2022 edition, as I said, just came out a week ago. And when you register for either the College Application Success course or the group coaching program by midnight on June 6th, I will send you one as a bonus, as a complimentary gift to you as for registering early. In addition, of course, to the 15 Ways to Save 10,000 or More on College. And I wanted to mention that too. So that's an ebook that I wrote a number of years ago, and then I revised it this last year to add even more ways. And I've seen some of the similar things that some of my fellow education consultants have put together. And I've been quite dismayed because they'll advertise them the same way and talk about them the same way I talk about mine, but they don't have things that you could actually do. There's not enough information. There's more like advertising. And I found that really, really frustrating. So, I'm a Catholic and I'm a Midwesterner. So we're pretty down to earth and practical. Everything in mind, you can actually implement. So not everything is going to be appropriate for every family, but I give you all the information that you need to evaluate the various strategies and to put them into place. And I would encourage that you get that no matter, find a way to get that from me, because there are things that you can do far before high school even to get things started. And so many ways to save money, because as we know, college is very expensive and very necessary for many students, depending on what they want to do in life. So here are the links that you need for the College Success Program options. So the tinyurl.com/CAS programs takes you to a page with information on both the online course as well as the group coaching program. And there's a link there for you to be able to register to either one of those programs. If you want to get more information about the Prepared Parent Coaching Group, that's going to be starting monthly on June 14th. You can get information about that at tinyurl.com/preparedparents. If you have a younger student perhaps and you would like to just sign up for that group on its own, you can do that as well. And then if you are interested, you have a student who's not in the class of 2022, who's got a younger student, and you would like to discuss one-on-one consulting, then we need to have an initial consultation. It'll be the parents and the student and myself. We'll talk for about an hour. I'll send you an agenda. We're going to talk about everything from extracurriculars to courses so far to college visits and kind of where you're at in the whole process. We'll talk to the student first, and then the parents will answer your questions and explore what option is the best option for you to move forward. I'm always committed to the family's success. And so I will give you honest answers, even if the answer is do it on your own, so whatever is best for you. So that consultation, go to tinyurl.com/CKatherine to sign up for that. And then lastly, if you are unsure about what's best for you and you just want to talk to me the next couple of days, I'm offering free 15-minute calls with me. So if you go to tinyurl.com/CKatherine, you will find a number of opportunities to sign up for those. I don't usually talk to families for free, but I recognize that this is a lot of information to process, and even what you find on the website and that I've put on there for you to read, you still may have questions about what's best for you. So if you want to meet with me for 15 minutes and discuss which situation would be best for your student, I'd be happy to do that. So here's all of my contact information. I want to thank you for your patience with me as I'm battling this cold and the sinus congestion. I'm much better than I was, but still sick. And it's not COVID. So tinyurl.com/CAS programs gives you the information on the College Application Success Program course, as well as the group coaching program. Those are both going to start this summer and move through the entire senior year. So those are obviously for our rising seniors, our juniors who are finishing their school year now, class of 2022. And, the idea is to repeat them every year and update them as needed for each graduating class. If you're interested in more about the parent support group, that's tinyurl.com/preparedparents, and you'll get information about that. As I said, it's included in the one-on-one consulting, in the application success program course, and group coaching programs as well. But if you want to do that as a standalone, that's a possibility as well. So you get more information there. If you want to meet with me, that's tinyurl.com/CKatherine. And you can sign up for an initial consultation for an hour with the whole family to talk about and through what's happening with that student and what your options are, answer your questions, and however I can help you, from a custom package to something I've already got set up to a la carte service, whatever that may be, or a 15-minute help you sort out which of the offerings I have would be best for your student. That's particularly for the class of 22, the rising seniors. I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And I want to, again, thank you for your patience with me as I'm not feeling well. I'm doing better, and hopefully we'll be all well very soon. Okay, thank you, and God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.